Nintendo has gone back to their old releases once again to buck up the Disk System. And once again, it's a game that was a launch title for the Famicom all the way back in 1983. The third launch game, Popeye, is never going to get a disc release, probably because Nintendo's already lost the license. And looking at Donkey Kong Jr., a question comes to mind. Why is Donkey Kong Jr. not popular? It's the sequel to one of the most beloved games in history. When the original arcade game was released in 1982, it was a hit. So why is Donkey Kong Jr. consigned to the dustbin of history? Okay, it hasn't fallen as far as Donkey Kong 3, but the response to Donkey Kong Jr. seems to be more, oh yeah, that existed. I guess it was good, rather than hailing it as a classic game. And honestly, the reason's obvious when you think about it for a moment. Donkey Kong Jr. was an enjoyable but not great game from the golden age of arcades. It's B tier, and it's not hard to feel that after you play it for a while. In Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong has been kidnapped by the evil Mario. Jr. goes to rescue his father, but Mario unleashes his army of monsters upon the young ape. Donkey Kong Jr. consists of 4 stages, so they managed to fit the entire game in this one compared to Donkey Kong, which had one of its 4 stages cut. And in the first 3, your goal is to navigate to the top of the structure and grab the vine next to Donkey Kong's cage. Then on the 4th stage, your goal is to push all of the keys to the top of the chain. If they reach the top, then Donkey Kong is freed, and the wicked Mario falls to his death. Junior can jump if you press the A button, but the primary ability that you want to use with him is climbing vines. When you jump onto a vine, you can hit left and right to swing your arm out and catch onto any other vine that's nearby. And if you're holding onto 2 vines, then hitting left or right will switch to holding onto just one of those. When Junior is holding onto 2 vines, he can climb very fast. When he's holding onto 1 vine, then he can slide down very fast. And this is a pretty good system. There's a dynamic give and take in your motion, and it introduces some strong risk-reward elements to how you move through the stage. Unfortunately, the game really doesn't take advantage of this. Consider the first stage. You start out with 2 vines right above you, so you can use that motion to go up, but then you have to cross over to the platform. You can't pass through platforms in Donkey Kong Jr., you always have to go around them, and that winds up making large chunks of some stages effectively irrelevant. You'll never have a reason to go to the bottom right section of this stage. And the way that the levels are structured, you always have to move in a zigzag pattern, even if it looks at first glance like you should be able to move freely. On stage 1, you have to go up, and then across to the next vine to go down, and then you can go up again, and around the edge of the top platform, and then finally reach Donkey Kong. On stage 2, you can use a perfectly timed springboard jump to reach the floating platform, but if you miss it, you have to go all the way to the right, and then all the way to the left, and then all the way to the right, and then all the way to the left. And breaking the stage into bands like that gives you effectively no room to play around. You can bop fruit when you're climbing on a vine and make it drop, and if it collides with an enemy, it'll defeat them, getting you points, but one of the fruits on stage 2 can never hit an enemy. They don't fly that low. Stage 3 takes place in a lab, and you'll notice that the vines are only used to get between floors. Otherwise, this is very similar to the first stage of the original Donkey Kong, and I think the long zigzag pattern is really obvious here. Finally, on stage 4, you have a wide open field of chains for you to climb. You've got wide open movement, enemies that you have to figure out how to work around, and a goal on the stage that takes advantage of that vine climbing mechanic. You can push 2 keys up at once, at the cost of being more vulnerable. You've got lots of options for movement and scoring here. There's even a safe zone if you want to go all the way down to the ground. This is the one stage in the game where Donkey Kong Jr. lives up to the promise of its game mechanics. Okay, I've just spent the past several minutes being extremely hard on Donkey Kong Jr., but I really don't dislike it. In fact, I've never heard anybody actively dislike it. Naturally, there's plenty of fans in Japan, and the Famicom port, which was re-released here, is pretty good. It's barely scaled down. It's losing a bit of animation and fine control, But for a 1983 release, no one was going to care about that. It's just, I can play a game of Donkey Kong Jr. every 4 or 5 years and go, okay, that was decent enough. It's not a game that I feel any desire to go back to. It is that other Donkey Kong game, and I think it suffers for that.